While the perpetual calendar is my favorite complication, watches with it can often have problems. My VCO Perpetual had an issue where the rotor stopped providing power to the watch, while the AP Ceramics crown decided to escape the watch entirely. If brands that have existed for centuries can't get the perpetual calendar right, then what chance does a small independent watchmaker that has been operating for less than 20 years have? Looking at this MB&F Legacy Machine Perpetual EVO, I'd say that the chances are actually pretty good. Today, I want to tell you why this is the ultimate perpetual calendar. Before we get started, please help by liking the video. The support makes a big difference. Thank you and enjoy. The Perpetual EVO fixes two big problems of a traditional perpetual calendar. First is that traditional calendars are a pain to set. You need to follow specific instructions as per the manual unless you want to risk breaking the watch. In contrast, the Perpetual EVO is completely idiot-proof. Each pusher corresponds to the closest display and can be pressed at any time without damaging the movement. If the watch has run out of power for a few days, you can simply use the top left pusher, which will advance all displays together in a synchronized manner. This is exceptionally useful for those who like to rotate between watches, but also want to keep the dates accurate. The second issue of most perpetual calendars is that they are fragile. While many classify a Royal Oak as a sports watch, its QP only has a measly 20 meters of water resistance. Meanwhile, the Perpetual EVO has 80 meters, as well as a shock absorbing system. If you felt compelled to, you can actually go swimming or exercise with the watch. Beyond being completely idiot-proof, the Perpetual EVO is also sheer eye candy. The first thing I love is that you get a clear view of all the components and how they operate. Whether you're using the pushers or changing the time, you can admire the components moving around. Another thing I adore is that the Perpetual EVO is constantly in motion due to that gorgeous flying balance wheel. In contrast, many perpetual calendars are totally static and can get boring to look at. On the flip side, I can see many people criticizing this watch for looking messy, and I certainly don't think my close-up camera shots will do anything to dispel that view. There's a lot going on with the Perpetual EVO, since it's effectively an open-worked watch. All I can say is that when you look at the watch in person, it's not actually that bad, and it's also surprisingly legible. The black subdials stand out from all the silver components below, and the white text is actually quite easy to read given the contrast. Unlike some other perpetuals, the information also isn't that crowded. If you want a legacy machine that's cleaner and just as robust, there's always the LM Split Escapement EVO that you can go for. For the MB&F Legacy Machine fanatics, something you may not realize is that the EVO has no bezel. Instead, the crystal flows straight into the case. The result is that you can better admire the depth of this mechanical city, since the lack of bezel gives a clearer view into the side of the movement. Somehow, I also think the watch looks more sporty as a result of it. Finishing is generally good, especially when it comes to the polishing of the hands and the beautiful arches supporting the flying balance wheel. We don't have super fine anglage or sharp angles like you'd find on a Roman Gaultier Logical 1, but I also think that's fine, as the appeal of this watch lies elsewhere. Moving on to the movement, I have to say that this is probably my favorite caseback out of all legacy machines. This movement was developed by Stephen McDonnell, premiering in the LM Perpetual in 2015, before evolving into the EVO in 2020. Here we see the split escapement, which is special because according to Max, no one had ever separated the balance wheel from the escapement before. Doing so was a necessity, since there was simply no space on the dial. Finally, let's talk about the elephant in the room. The Perpetual EVO is a nice weight and feels extremely comfortable, even though this smaller strap is not meant for my wrist. However, there are two things I'd improve. Firstly, the spring-loaded deployant is very tight. This may give additional security for when the watch is on your wrist, but it also makes it a pain to put on. Secondly, the watch wears a bit big on my 17.5cm wrist, mostly due to how the lugs extend outwards to accommodate the integrated rubber strap. While other 44mm legacy machines feel completely fine, I would prefer it if the EVO were somehow 1 or 2mm smaller. Overall, the Perpetual EVO is visually stunning, incredibly innovative, and completely idiot-proof. In every sense of the word, I also consider this a true sports watch, which makes it unlike any other high-end Perpetual calendar. If you can afford a Richard Mille and are considering buying one, I'd urge you to stop and get a Perpetual EVO instead. As the final aside, I want to add that the MB&F team is an absolute joy to communicate with and make owning their pieces just that bit more special. Servicing is also less of a hassle than it is with some other independents, since you can send pieces in via the Hourglass instead of having to mail the watch directly. If you enjoyed this video, please do check out my other MB&F reviews. Thank you for watching.